on illegal immigration, and I agree with him on all the other issues. I'll tell you something as a conservative about Romney. I was with Ronald Reagan in '76 and again in '80. '76 he lost to Gerald Ford in the primary, and then in '80 he won and became president. And then I stayed with him for any number of years after that. And prior to that, I wasn't much older than you then. I guess I was probably 4 or 5 years older. But you always knew as a conservative who represented conservative movement. Who was the leader of the conservative movement? You know, it was Goldwater, it was Nixon, you know, whomever was Reagan was coming up in the future, so we were very excited to watch him emerge. He was going to be our candidate. And since then, we haven't had anybody. As a conservative, when I look forward, it's like, well, I don't know. You know anything about him? Well, he's not too bad, but not real good on this. Well, he's okay on that, but not good. We just hadn't had anybody represent the conservatives. And Bush has been much, much more of a moderate, his dad as well. And so we didn't have anybody. And so the movement has suffered because of it. And you know who really has represented us and given us voice is talk radio. They've been the ones that have energized and kept this movement alive. But you need a leader. You need somebody we can galvanize behind and get into the primaries. And Mitt was fresh and not as good a candidate in the early days. He had a lot of explaining to do. I don't know, you know, he came from Massachusetts. He had run for governor and senator up there as a liberal or moderate Republican, to say the least. And so he had now emerged, and he didn't sound like a person who was absolutely convinced of his convictions early on. But as he debated more, and I watched him, and he emerged, you could see he was studying the issues. And I'll tell you something about him. He's a guy that wasn't in this business. He hasn't been debating immigration for 10 years like I have. You know, he hasn't been debating these other issues and taking positions and back and forth. He was in business and doing mighty well, I might add. And so now he took it and became governor, and he took a look at the issue of driver's license for illegals came before him. He said, what's this? What's this side? What's that side? Studied it, came down on the right side. No driver's license. And he did the same with life. You know, he was pro-life, but he looked at stem cell, and he said, wait a minute, he studied it, he came out and he said, I can't do this. And so he has emerged as he studied and debated these issues. And so I think this campaign has been remarkably, when I saw him in the last couple months, he was excellent. He was an outstanding candidate, and he has all that it takes to be a national leader of the conservative movement. And I think for me, it's the silver lining of this campaign. He didn't win this time. A guy who has not been a conservative for the last 10 years won. But the silver lining is, today I have somebody who I'm looking forward to in the future, who I hope to lead this country and move back into the White House. So why he didn't win, I think in the early days he really didn't get his, he didn't get a feeling for the issues. He didn't find his political feet, if you like. And once he started to do it, he started to emerge. And in Florida, we moved ahead the weekend before. If we won Florida, we would have won the nomination. And what the moderates did is they recognized this. They do it every time to the conservatives. They split the vote. Against my brother, they put Alan Keyes in. He got his 5, 10, 12 points in these states. Those were all Pat Buchanan voters. And when Forbes was running, they put in Gary Bauer. He's another conservative evangelical. And he pulled his 5, 10, 15, splits the vote, and then the moderate goes through. And this time it was Huckabee. McCain couldn't have beat Romney 101. He had to have Huckabee stay in the race. He could not beat us. And Huckabee could not beat Romney 101. But Huckabee refused to drop out, and he was throwing it to his friend McCain. And he was hoping for the Veep seat. That's my take on that. He's not going to get it, but that's what his plan was. And so we were double-teamed. And you couldn't win it being double-teamed. And then, but it looked like we might win Florida. We pulled ahead on the Friday. And that's when McCain did 10 million robocalls into Florida, lying about Mitt Romney's record. 10 million, saying he's going to take away the guns, and big hunters in Florida, the Republicans are, and that he was in favor of homosexual rights, and both to the evangelical community. So that really softened our vote, and then he lied about Mitt's position on the surge. So he got into that big debate in the last 3 or 4 days. Then Chris came in and threw it. Endorsed him, and 1, 2, 3, 4, it was done. So why did he lose? That's why he lost. Basically, McCain did to Mitt what Bush did to McCain 8 years ago.